I'd like to introduce you to Carol Fridal, certified legal nurse consultant. And Carol, I want to start with, to me, what I believe is a really intentional kind of question. And that is, what motivated you to become a certified legal nurse consultant to begin with?
That's a good question because, I saw advertisements for it for probably longer than I should have waited, probably a good 5 to 10 years. And I always said that was something I was interested in doing. And as life progressed and work progressed, it just became more and more on my radar as to something I was interested in pursuing. It really intrigued me because we know the medical side, we're reviewing medical records all the time. And the thought of becoming certified as a consultant to be able to work with attorneys to help them understand the patient's journey really just kind of became the forefront of something I was interested in doing.
That's great. So were you thinking about this for a number of years before you actually became certified?
Sadly, yes, it took me probably, I want to say probably close to 10 years to really get serious about it. And it seemed like you'd see the advertisements for it, and you'd go out and kind of read the advertisement and say, yep, I'm interested in it. And then life happened and it just kind of got pushed to the back burner. And I finally just got to the point where I was tired of pushing something I was interested in doing to the back burner and kind of really pulled it to the forefront. I was finishing my master's and I just kind of thought this was a new career path that was all kind of just meant to be at the same time.
Yeah, so ultimately the timing was right, but I think what you say about, life happened is so common among many registered nurses. And that's why one of my favorite quotes is, it's the start that stops most people, right? Because a
Yes.
lot of people want to get started. And that's why I think it's important, if you're interested, to know that you can just do this on a part-time basis. You don't have to go all in from the very beginning.
You're right, that you bring up a very good point, because you really think about people talking about leaving the nursing career to do this full time, but it really works as a blended pathway very well, depending upon what you want to do with your CLNC. There's so many different options, and that's what really is great, is opens up so many new doors.
You seem to come across as confident. Were you confident going in? Did you have any fears about getting started as a consultant?
Most definitely I did. I lacked that self-confidence. And if anything, this has really created the self-confidence to know that you are valued, your opinions are valued, and it changes from just like being with your supervisors or your peers or the physicians to now you're working with people outside the healthcare industry, and they're really looking at you confidently and how you present yourself. So it was a great confidence builder.
Yeah, that's always music to my ears when people tell me that growing their CLNC business gave them more confidence. So how did you overcome some of those initial fears that you had?
I think, you talked about doing calls on attorneys, and, I was so used to not being able to get into the offices, the gatekeepers, as we called it, not letting you in. And it just kind of drove you to be a little bit more persistent. And once I got my first case, it really then became a lot more comfortable to ask questions and ask them to refer you to other attorneys. So it's really almost, my marketing is probably not as robust as what it should be, but it's really word of mouth. And if the attorney likes you, they share your business card, excuse me, with somebody else. That's really helped grow my business.
What personal traits would you say have contributed to your success?
Well, I'm pretty driven. Once I put my mind to do something, I'm not a quitter. I raised my kids not to be quitters. So it's not like you could just spend the money, get this, and then say, oh, it's just not worth it, and push it back. You really had to commit to it once you invested in it. So I think my traits are, I'm very accountable, I'm very respectable, and I'm very driven when I decide to do something.
Yeah, and I think that's a quality that many registered nurses have. And I always tell, especially nurses who are just starting out, like if you apply a lot of what you apply in the healthcare setting to your business, you can be successful, because in healthcare, nurses make it happen. They are not afraid to take action and to get things done, right? And what would a healthcare setting be without the registered nurses? Now, you mentioned that when you had 10 active cases with attorneys, that's when you knew you were on the way to building your CLNC business. I remember you telling me this. Can you share with me two of the strategies that were effective in helping you to get to those 10 active cases?
It seemed like once I got my first case and got through it and kind of figured out what was the expectation of doing a case, then when I finally got my second case, it just seemed like they started coming in, and it was almost like, okay, at what point do I say I've had enough? And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep going. And it was amazing how they kind of staggered and all just kind of filled in almost like a deck of cards. It just felt very comfortable. And each case just kind of whetted your appetite for a little bit more. So it didn't seem like it was overwhelming. Doing this as well as working, I kept thinking, okay, when am I going to be overwhelmed? And it really just, the attorneys are so easy to work with, and they're so forgiving with your schedule that it was very comfortable to get those first 10 cases. And then they just kind of kept feeding themselves, almost like, oh, I don't know, an analogy of like watering a plant. You water a plant and it grows. You nurture your cases and they just keep multiplying.
Yeah, and I always say in the CLNC certification program that the work product, those reports that you write and the opinions that you render to these attorneys, that work product is the best marketing strategy. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you, that the more you got active with cases, I guess the more attorneys know you and hear about you and want to do business.
That's correct. And it's nice when they say they like your work. I'm working on a case here just in this last month that I had to write a brief report, and the attorney has loved the product so much. And it's just like, I don't know where the information came from. Well, it came from the medical records, but it just flowed together in a report so comfortably that it was fun to write almost.
Yeah.
You hate to say that.
And you just said something that is so obvious to you and I and many certified legal nurse consultants, but it's not obvious to attorneys, because the attorney said, I don't know where all this came from. And you said it came from the medical records. A lot of times nurses take their knowledge and their understanding of the electronic medical records for granted. And they assume that what they know, other people like attorneys know. And that's just not the case, is it?
That's true. And along with the standards of care, they kind of know what's right and wrong. But when you start to weave the standards of care into that medical record, it almost writes itself.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what do you love most about your CLNC business?
Oh, I love the independence that it gives me. I love working with the attorneys, and I really like writing the reports. They want you, you do your initial opinion a lot of times, and it's a verbal opinion. And then when they get to the point where they want you to write that brief report, and you're really pulling everything together for that attorney so that they're reading it, you're writing it like they're a lay person. So you're really kind of writing it down to a level that anybody can understand. That is just a very, very rewarding piece of the work. But again, love working with the attorneys.
Thank you. And I heard you earlier kind of say the respect that you receive from these attorneys. And I'm sure that's another factor that you love, right?
It is. It is. It's just that working relationship that I think healthcare used to have it, but now it's kind of, everybody's struggling so much with staffing. You don't get that respect and that time to have those conversations, critical thinking conversations. Mm-hmm. And you get to have those now with the attorneys.
You also mentioned that you love writing the reports, and I personally really enjoy hearing that. Okay. But one of the things that I always like to remind, especially new RNs interested in legal nurse consulting, is that attorneys are not like nursing instructors. You don't have to be this perfect writer. And I like the way you said that you're writing those reports as though you were writing it for just any lay person out there, basic, so anybody can understand it. So basically, the message I want people to hear is that report writing should not feel that overwhelming. You're just taking your opinion and putting it on paper for that attorney.
That's true. And the attorneys are great. They kind of help guide you as to what they want in that report. I mean, more times than not, you have more information than what they want. So you really have to kind of hone it down to the basics. But the attorneys are great as far as guiding you as to what they're looking at specifically in that report. So instead of being scared of the attorney, they almost kind of become your best friend, because you really just have that really fluid relationship with them.
Yeah, it's very collaborative. Now, one of the things too, I know anytime you own a business, there's going to be changes in your career, but have you had changes just in your personal life as a result of owning your CLNC business?
I have. I was going to say, everything comes with rewards, and there are financial rewards to this. You're owning your own business. Your overhead is different. You're not having to worry about this, that, or the other thing. So I'm not going to lie, the money is good, and it is nice that you get maybe an extra vacation out of the deal, or maybe you're allowed to buy a new car or be able to upgrade your home somehow. So there are some financial benefits to it. And it's kind of interesting, when I've been in court, sometimes the defense or the opposite attorney tries to make that a bad deal, but it shouldn't be, because you're putting yourself out there on the line as far as giving your opinions, and you have to be pretty sure of yourself when you're giving those opinions.
Definitely. And you also mentioned earlier that you really enjoyed the independence. So how has that changed your life?
Well, instead of working 50-hour work weeks at work, I'm working much less. I work about 0.6 of a full-time line, so that I can devote the rest of my time to this. And I can do this whether we're taking a vacation, driving down the road, or whether I'm sitting at home, just having a day off. So the flexibility of being able to do your CLNC work anywhere is really nice.
Thank you. How would you say working as an independent consultant is different from working inside the healthcare system?
Again, you have your own self to be true to. At work, I have guidelines that I follow. At work at home, I still have my own guidelines, but they're my guidelines. They're not my employer's guidelines. So you do have that independence again to, set the guidelines, what you would like your business to look like.
That's great. So in other words, you get to define it. And I think I've heard other CLNCs say that. I mean, I know every certified legal nurse consultant is so different in how they see their business, how they see the goals for their business, and being able to define that for yourself that's a pretty sweet spot to be in, especially at a later stage in your nursing career.
This is true. If I would have done this like I should have 20 years ago, I probably would have a much bigger business, possibly. But now, a little bit later in life, it's kind of like, what do I want out of the business? So you can kind of hone it to as big or as little as you really want it to be.
That's excellent. Carol, what is your definition of success?
Well, there's lots of different things I can think of, but I think most important to me is my self-satisfaction. Am I doing the right thing at the right time? I view myself as an advocate for my patients, because I believe in our documentation that we're documenting the story or the event that the patient is going through while they're in the hospital. So I almost think when I'm looking at medical records, I'm being that patient advocate. And that's really what gives me the most pleasure, is being that voice for that patient. And my success is just enjoying what I do. If you lose that lust or love for your work or your career, it's sad. So this is really brought in that lust and enjoyment again.
That's great. So, I think that's true for almost all professionals, right? Introducing something new and different into your professional life just always adds some extra enthusiasm to it. And so I think it's okay for a nurse to say, you know what, I've been doing this nursing situation for a long time, and it's okay to want to be excited about doing something different. Well, thank you so much, Carol, and great success to you. And thank you for sharing your personal experiences here with us today.
Well, thank you, Vicki, for inviting me, and really thanks for being my role model for the years. Well, it's been 20 years because I've been doing this now just about 12 years, and 10 years before that I kept looking at your tapes and your videos, and just thanks for being there and opening this opportunity for nurses.
Thank you.